Hello all. Thank you for coming. My name's Doug, and today I wanted to take you to an adventure in YOHO National Park. I have to tell you, it's one of my favorite places. I'd go there tomorrow if I could. YOHO National Park is in the heart of the Canadian Rockies. In fact, Canadian Rockies are so big that they have a big chunk right in the center. 4 national parks. I always like to ask people if they can think of what all 4 national parks in the heart of the Canadian Rockies are. I gave you one, YOHO. There's also the one everybody knows, and that's Banff. To the north is Jasper, but the hard one is the one that's kind of to the south, and that's Kootenay, and they're all gorgeous. You know, YOHO is actually a Cree Indian word meaning awe and wonder, and I think they had the perfect name for it. I would like to start this presentation with this picture because this is going on Highway 1. Highway 1 is the Trans-Canadian Highway. It goes from east to west or west to east, depending on how you want to look at it. Ours goes north to south, but they're both beautiful. This picture has a little spot I thought was really special. It's a little inn eatery right on the one, just sitting there, and I wished I could have stayed there forever. It was a really nice little spot. But we've got somewhere else to go. Where are we? Well, here's British Columbia, and as you know, this is a province in Canada, and Canada has provinces instead of our states. Their provinces tend to be a little bit bigger than our average state. To the east, you can see there is Alberta. Where we're going to go is on the British Columbia side, right down there on the diagonal border between them. That's where YOHO is, on the British Columbia side. At it. Those green lines, those dark green lines, are the borders of the 4 national parks. You can't see Jasper to the north, but there's Banff to the right. There's YOHO in the center. It also includes Lake O'Hara and Kootenay to the south. Over to the right, the big red dot is Lake Louise that you've probably heard of or been to. And you also notice that that curvy red line going through from left to right is Highway 1. Has to curve quite a bit because of trying to get over the mountains. Now, I'm going to stop at a place on the road just above Lake O'Hara at a beautiful little town called Field. So there's Field, and I'm going to get my permit there. It's a gorgeous little tiny town. All the roofs are different colors. I've got the Trans-Canadian Railway running right there. You can see the train in the foreground, and even in front of that is the Kicking Horse River. So here we are at Takaka Falls, a beautiful waterfall, one of the taller waterfalls in all of the Canadian Rockies. This one straight drop here in the foreground is over 800, or approximately 800 feet. So it drops down into the Kicking Horse River as well. There's a tiny little campground. I'm going to stay there the night and get a good start the next morning. Where are we going to go? Well, you see that blue line going up along the right, slightly diagonally. And if you look about a third of the way up, see that's where Takaka Falls is. That's where I'm starting, and I'm going to, from the end of the road, that black line, I'm going to take the dotted line up along the river and try and get almost to YOHO Glacier. Just to the left, where all those dots are all bunched together, is the campground we're going to stay at for the first night. And I have to tell you, it's a gorgeous trail. Here's the river coming down. And the thing that's funny is I can't even come close to naming all the peaks here for you. I can't remember them. But there are just so many. Every direction you look is another gorgeous peak. And we'll see that as we go along. And here is another gorgeous little waterfall coming down. Angel's Staircase. Another waterfall, Point Lace. And this waterfall, you see all the downed timber next to it, which has fallen, as you can tell, from the bank eroding from the water when it's up. And as we know, one of the things that's so wonderful about nature, all that lumber is going to be used. It's all going to eventually decompose and provide nutrition for the next generation of trees. And then we have another little tree growing inside of this stump. I have no idea why they sawed this tree down, but there's another little bitty tree growing out of it. I'd love to go back in some years and see how this little tree did. I'd never find it, but it would be nice to try. I always kind of wonder, do you think it was planted by a bird, or do you think it was planted by the wind? This is Laughing Falls. I have absolutely no idea how it got that name. Sometimes I wonder if you look at the base of the falls and the wet part on the wall, if that looks like a grin to you, the shape of a grin, but that's the only thing I could figure out. And then, we've got some prints in the ground, and they were pretty big prints. If I had been smart, I would have put my hand down to show you how big they were, but they were bigger than my hand. So I wanted to ask you who you think they belong to. And that brings me to our next thing, is that what do trackers look for when they look for paw prints? Well, I have 3 prints here for you. I have a little contest we'll do for fun. And I have a print here of a bear, a dog, and a cougar. But you have to decide which one is which. They're naturally, as you can guess, they're not to scale. But which one do you think is the cougar? Which one do you think is the dog? And which one do you think is the bear? There they are. It's not what you would expect, is it? First thing that you'd expect, at least I would have expected the claws to be on the print of the cougar, but the cats don't show their claws when they make the prints. The bear and the dog do. And you'll notice the bear. The bear has 5 toes showing, whereas the dog only has 4. Notice the lobes on the cougar. 3 lobes for the cougar, 2 for the canines. And the last thing is, if you look at the dog, you can actually see the print. If you look at the white part, it actually forms an X. Who's this guy for us? I see 5 toes and I see claws. This is a bear. Now, whether it's a grizzly bear or a black bear, I didn't stay to find out. And we come to one of the gorgeous well, all the waterfalls are gorgeous, but I like this one. This is Twin Falls. We're going to be heading out in that direction. We're going to be to the right of it where that campground is. And Twin Falls, well, that certainly is a crazy name for this place, isn't it? This nice little waterfall, and it's called Twin Falls. It's called Twin Falls because when the water is heavy, when the water is up, just to the left, a second fall comes down too, so it got the name Twin. I get to camp pretty early afternoon, so I made good time. You can see there's a couple picnic benches there. Here's the river dropping down, and I'll set up my tent, and I've got some time for us to do a little adventure on the side. Now, what am I going to take? I think, well, I'm certainly not going to take my backpack, not going to take my tent's set up. I'm going to take a little bit of food, going to take some water, I'm going to take, well, should I take a sweater? Oh, of course. And as I always say, no matter, even if the sky were perfectly clear, I'm taking a rain jacket because you never want to get caught without a rain jacket. It's the clearest day in the year. You want to take your rain jacket. Make sure my food is all secured that I leave behind, and we're ready to go. Well, if you look at the little tiny clump there of dots way up at the top near the end of the blue, that blue river, I didn't do a very good job of drawing this map. but that blue would extend all the way up to the tip of the Yoho Glacier. And if you look at where all the dots are clustered, that's where I'm camped. And a little bit of the dots head up towards the tongue of Yoho Glacier. That's what we're going to go on. Flowers gorgeous, all kinds of little flowers around here. How tiny that little guy is, and that guy is actually little itty bitty tiny flowers that make a tiny flower. And all of a sudden, you come out of the forest and you're in this, to me, this was a wonderland. I thought this was an amazing area looking at all the sculpture. And you know what created it? It was the glacier when the glacier slid down here. Let's walk up here. Now you can see the trail. The trail is actually hugging the left wall. It goes just past this little tree on the left, and it's going to head up there. I can see some little waterfalls up there in the distance. Maybe we can go check them out. But something happens pretty soon. I don't see a trail anymore. So now we're going to have to be extra careful, aren't we? We have to be careful in the first place. Now we're going to be extra careful because we've got no trail. And I come up here. Which way do you want to go? Well, there's a lot of options here. I decided I think I'm going to go left. There, and there's that waterfall coming down with those beautiful stripes, that beautiful strata coming up. And again, it shows how our Earth, how we have those plates, they push up and everything gets on these angles, and the tectonic plates, I should say. And then you look at the stones, and the stones are quite a bit different than they look further down on the side. This is where the glacier has run over them. And they've been pushed and beat up for years and years. And they've now these beautiful smooth stones. All different colors, all different minerals, all different compositions. That guy right there. Only a little bit bigger than the tip of my finger. White on one side and gray on the other. A little bit of lichen growing on it. And I look back down, boy, we have a nice day, don't we? Looking back down the canyon. And as much as I'm enjoying looking at this beautiful, beautiful day, there's something else I got to notice. Anybody want to guess? Well, if I decide, when I decide to go home, if I head down this beautiful canyon and I keep walking down the river, it's gorgeous, guess what? I'm going to miss the cutoff into the forest because I'm not on the trail anymore. I have to remember where that trail cuts off. So that's why I'm looking back like we always talk about. And there's our waterfall. It's kind of neat how it kind of looks crooked in this picture. It's one of those optical illusions that happens depending on your angles. But you see all that strata down at the bottom with all those beautiful stripes. And then I look up the canyon. A little bit further up, beyond where I can get to, is the tongue of the Yoho Glacier. I'm not too far from it, but I also don't have a route to get there safely. There's some drops here that I simply couldn't get around. There's our crooked waterfall on the left with those neat stripes going at an angle, and in the foreground I see a bright orange little flower, and I bet some of you have already guessed who it is. Indian paintbrush. And Indian paintbrush is a beautiful red color right there. In fact, there's some beautiful red on the rock in front of us. Another example of lichen. Paintbrush doesn't always grow in red. Sometimes it grows in yellow or magenta or other colors. But there is one thing that's very common among paintbrush, and that is they love to have neighbors. And the reason for that is that that paintbrush has its roots go down, and then it goes down a ways, and then it turns left and goes and visits the roots of its neighbors. And when it's visiting the roots of its neighbors, it attaches to them and sucks out the nutrition, which is a kind of a dirty trick. But that is why a paintbrush is known as a root parasite, because it's stealing the nutrition of its neighbors, and that's why you see it often with neighbors. All right. Now we can look back down and see that why we have to look and remember where we have to kind of climb up and get into the forest instead of heading down the river. And I look up, what a beautiful day we picked to go up here, don't you think? Well, I'm not too worried about the rain, but I am worried about something else. And if you look, you can kind of tell by the color of this picture, or I should probably say the tone, because you look and it looks a lot darker, and that's because it's all falling into shadow. We're getting very late in the afternoon, and although I feel comfortable walking in the dark, I'm in an area I'm really not that familiar with, so I prefer not to walk back in the dark. So let's head back. Good thing we checked where to go back in the forest, isn't it? You can see the trail right down there cutting up towards those trees just on the right. And look at those gorgeous little flowers, pink, delicate little pink and delicate little yellow. So why the heck did I take a picture of these tree trunks here in the middle of the forest? Well, you can see if you look right down at the bottom, I see 4 scratch marks from a bear that happened to come along and wanted to scratch the tree trunk. They actually keep going all the way up. Now, what's interesting is I couldn't see how far up those scratches went, but the black bear is the one who can actually climb up the tree if he wants to. So don't know if it was a bear climbing or just scratching or what he was doing. And we're back at camp just in time for dinner and to get a good night's sleep. And then another adventure tomorrow morning. We're going to keep on going to the Whaleback and to Little YOHO Valley, which are spectacular. I'm looking forward to seeing you then. Thanks a lot.